Hello, I'm Justin Green, and today I'm going to be doing a presentation on the axolotl, also known as the Mexican salamander. Okay, so the axolotl is a critically endangered species. Scientists estimate there's about 12,000 left in the wild, give or take. It lives 10 to 15 years. The females lay up to 1,000 eggs, but they can lay as little as 100. It's about 15 to 30 centimeters long, about this big, and it weighs about 60 to 227 kilograms. So it lives in two lakes in the central of Mexico. Its official name is Ambroistoma mexicanum. The lakes it lives in are called Lake Chaleco and Lake Exochilimiloco. That's a long word. However, Lake Chaleco was drained to prevent periodic flooding to the area, so now scientists have relocated them to other lakes, and they've discovered that these creatures can actually live in any freshwater lake as long as it's at a high altitude and has a lot of vegetation. The axolotl is a secondary consumer, as it is eaten by a consumer, but it also eats a consumer. So it obtains energy by eating raw meat, again, secondary consumer. It feeds primarily on crustaceans, insect larvae, some fish, and it can turn cannibalistic if it's hungry enough, which is interesting. Okay, so, food chain. Heron eats the axolotl, which eats the crabs. The crabs are eaten by the heron. The crabs also eat the small fish and plankton, and the axolotl also eats those small fish. And those fish are eaten by pretty much everything except the plankton, which it eats. Okay, so a bit of basic facts that I couldn't include anywhere else but here. The name axolotl comes from the Aztec language, which means water dog. The tadpoles, and this is interesting, they fail to undergo metamorphosis. So instead of becoming a full salamander, they actually become somewhere in between. So they're stuck with their tail and their outer gills, which you saw in the pictures with those like frill-like things. In extremely rare cases, you'll see an axolotl that is fully matured, and it's fully physically mature. I mean, anyway, when they're not fully physically mature, they're fully sexually mature. So they can still reproduce, but sometimes they'll become fully physically mature as well, and they'll leave the water. But that's only in extremely rare cases. You rarely will see that. The natural coloring of an axolotl is brown with spots or black. The mutant colors they have are pale pink with black eyes, or albino. And albino is a lot more common in an axolotl than any other creature. Normally you only see it maybe once a generation. I mean, you can see several albinos in a generation with an axolotl. And here's how they can turn, this is why they can turn cannibalistic, because they regrow their lost limbs. So it gets an arm eaten off, grows it right back. That's also another reason why they're used a lot in science, because they can regenerate lost limbs. You cut a limb off to study it, they'll grow it back. So that's not to say it doesn't hurt, but you can still use it. Alright, thank you very much for taking the time to look at this.